Yang ji jimbur zirdan nimi zhang zonen hunum jimbur nga gyata bakar targan zanto shirmar to. Tumba tikje jan la ki sham tsar mechan rawar seringi zhang kamsa jagar tikji shan la yi larma. Jimi panzo jala sara de gongje topan pawar shinji lo, gongje topan pawar shinji lo, gongje topan pawar shinji.
Profound and subtle Dharma is rarely encountered in eons. Now we can hear and follow it. May we realize the Tathagata's meaning. To liberate sentient beings, please generate bodhicitta before today's teaching. Next week, our classes will be the same as before, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Today, we're going to teach about the present Buddhas. We've already taught about the past Buddhas. Today, we'll teach about the present Buddhas. After this, we'll teach about the future Buddhas, then the Dharma, and then the Bodhisattvas. In this way, we'll basically complete this section, this volume, the upper volume. We've already taught about the past Buddhas. When we hear these names of the Buddhas, there is inconceivable merit. I think some people may understand this, while others may not necessarily understand. Even if you cannot understand, I believe that hearing these names of the Buddhas truly shows a very special connection. This is not something I'm saying. These are the Tathagata's words of truth. If we believe that above there is heaven and below there are hell realms, then this too was taught by the Tathagata. The causes and conditions for going to heaven or falling to the hell realms were also taught through the Tathagata's omniscient wisdom, after clearly seeing the true nature of all phenomena. Therefore, we cannot believe only parts of the Tathagata's words while not believing other parts. This would show that our study is incomplete. As I just mentioned, even if we don't understand, when we hear these names of the Buddhas, it is truly very rare in this very life. If you haven't heard them before leaving this world, even if you gain fame and wealth or any worldly glory and riches, I feel that from a long-term perspective, looking at the value across all our lifetimes, truly this time, whether encountering various setbacks or disasters, if in the end we hear these names of the Buddhas, it should be in the long river of samsara, truly very meaningful. This is how I think about it. Now, let's continue with the Buddhas of the three times. Among these Buddhas of the three times, sometimes there are repeated names. Perhaps the names are different, or perhaps one Buddha appears in different sutras for these reasons. It's possible that when the Buddha taught, he proclaimed different names of Buddhas in this way. It's also possible that in different eons, there were many different eons in the past, and there will be many eons in the future. Of course, this past, present, and future here may not be what we now imagine as a particularly brief period of time, because now, for example, the 1,000 Buddhas of the fortunate eon, as we mentioned yesterday, the 1,000 past Buddhas appeared in the past eon. As for the 1,000 Buddhas of the fortunate eon, among the 1,000 Buddhas of the fortunate eon, some, such as Buddha Kashyapa and Buddha Vipashin, some have already shown the aspect of passing into nirvana, and there are still more than 900 Buddhas who haven't yet appeared. Yet we call them present Buddhas, the 1,000 Buddhas of the fortunate eon. As for the future Buddhas, there are also many who haven't yet appeared. This way of analyzing things here may involve different dimensions and different ways of establishing time. So sometimes it may be that we're simply using our own way of thinking, which may not necessarily be reasonable. We'll also, if there's time, explain this a bit more to everyone. Today we'll go through this briefly, just like before for each Buddha. This time I've compared different versions in quite some detail. So for some of you who have a bit of interest in research, listening to the names of these Buddhas of the three times will be very interesting. Among different versions, the analysis of different Buddha names. If you don't have this kind of interest and you're only thinking about solving suffering all day, and apart from this you have no interest in anything else, perhaps these several classes I'm teaching, including the next one or two classes, will also be taught in this style because it has to be taught this way. So you may not necessarily feel engaged. In fact, not only might you not feel engaged, sometimes you might feel a bit dizzy, like motion sickness. This is possible, but in any case, we must. It's like when we're on a train. Sometimes we might go through some tunnels. When we first started riding trains, going through tunnels was particularly frightening. The train would make a particularly loud sound, and at the time, we didn't know and couldn't adapt. But in any case, if you're going to board this train, you certainly must Sometimes you'll feel the scenery outside is very beautiful, and sometimes you'll feel like you're passing through complete darkness. So perhaps these names of Buddhas are different from our usual way of listening, contemplating, and meditating. And at first I thought I would recite all of them to everyone, but it seems this approach wouldn't be quite appropriate. So this time I'll give you some analysis. I prostrate to the countless present Buddhas. Who are these countless present Buddhas? I prostrate to the billion Buddhas prasenajit. We don't need light. As for the Buddhas prasenajit, actually, many sutras also explain this quite clearly. The billion Buddhas prasenajit. Then I prostrate to the Buddha, stainless refined gold dust. From here onward, actually, in the sutra here, it speaks of 9 Buddhas. As for these 9 Buddhas, in the eastern direction are the billion Buddhas, prasenajit. In the southern direction is the Buddha, stainless refined gold dust. This is the Buddha of the southern direction. I prostrate to the Buddha, limitless illumination. The Buddha, limitless illumination, is the Buddha of the western direction. In some texts, it says the Buddha, limitless illusory illumination. Some sutras also teach it this way. This is the Buddha of the western direction. I prostrate to the Buddha king, illuminating light like the mandala of the sun. This is the Buddha of the northern direction. In some sutras, it says, I prostrate to the Buddha king, illuminating light like the mandala of the sun, while in some, it's the Buddha king of turning suns, illuminating light. There are 2 different versions. Then in the upper direction, I prostrate to the Buddha heaped incense. The Buddha heaped incense should be mentioned in the Vimalakirti Sutra. The food there is especially delicious and fragrant. Among all the Buddha fields, their world is filled with fragrance. So it's fragrant everywhere, with wonderful aromas. In such a world, the Buddha heaped incense is in the upper direction. These next several Buddhas are all in the lower direction. I prostrate to the Buddha body of 100,000 lions. This is also a Buddha of the lower direction. I prostrate to the Buddha complete play of lions. In some sutras, it says the Buddha complete play of lions, and in some others, it says I prostrate to the Buddha Vajra body of 100,000 lions. This is also in the lower direction. I prostrate to the Buddha king of mountain of completely radiant good qualities. This is also in the lower direction. As for this Buddha king of mountain of completely radiant good qualities, after Buddha Amitabha passes into nirvana, Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara and Bodhisattva Mahastama Prapta will become Buddhas. At that time, Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara's name will be Buddha, king of mountain of completely radiant good qualities. This is a Buddha of the lower direction world. Then there's another Buddha called I prostrate to the Buddha, king of jewels, blissful abode of good qualities. As for the Buddha, king of jewels, blissful abode of good qualities, this is actually Bodhisattva Mahastama Prapta. This will be his name when he becomes a Buddha in the future. What was mentioned above in the sutra should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 9 Buddhas. These 9 Buddhas, east, south, west, north, then the upper direction, and in the lower direction there are 4 Buddhas. The names of these 9 Buddhas, whoever can hear and uphold them will not experience untimely death and will also not encounter the 8 unfavorable conditions. So the merit of hearing and upholding these Buddhas is truly very great. These are the 9 kinds of Buddhas mentioned above. Moving forward, actually many of the Buddhas here are also found in the Sutra of Buddha Names and also in the Sutra of the Names of the present 1,000 Buddhas of the Fortunate Eon, and in others, including the Amitabha Sutra. Many sutras also contain them. Now next we have I prostrate to the Buddha, king perfectly adorned with jeweled flowers. For this Buddha king, perfectly adorned with jeweled flowers, some texts say, and in Tibetan it's also this way, Buddha king perfectly adorned with jeweled flowers, adding the character for flower. I prostrate to the Buddha king perfectly adorned with jeweled flowers. I prostrate to the Buddha bearer of hardships. In the Great Compassion Sutra, it says that when Rahula saw Buddha Shakyamuni showing the aspect of passing into nirvana, he was particularly unwilling to witness such a scene. So he went to the Buddha bearer of hardships. When the Buddha saw that he was unhappy, the Buddha knew his mind completely with his wisdom and said to Rahula, you should still go back. All things that come together will eventually separate. You don't need to be so sad. If you don't go back, you may regret it later. And so he urged him to face the rather sorrowful scene of Buddha Shakyamuni showing the aspect of passing into nirvana at that time. Later, it seems Rahula also went to other Buddha fields, and other Buddhas also urged him to return. After that, he came to our human realm. When the Buddha showed the aspect of passing into nirvana, Rahula was also present. So this should be a Buddha of the northern world, called the Buddha bearer of hardships. I prostrate to the Buddha Sumeru appearance, and I prostrate to the Buddha King Sumeru lamp. As for the Buddha King Sumeru lamp in our Vimalakirti Sutra, we've also mentioned this before. However, some may have the same name, but be different Buddhas, because among the past Buddhas earlier, there was also a Buddha King Sumeru lamp. So here, among the present Buddhas, there's also a Buddha King Sumeru lamp. Perhaps the past Buddha is a different Buddha, because the present Buddha King Sumeru lamp. At that time, the householder Vimalakirti borrowed some of his beds and furnishings. In any case, some sutras say that hearing this Buddha's name and upholding this Buddha's name can also lead to non-regression. So in our practice of Mahayana Buddhism, non-regression is truly very important. For non-regression, we still need several causes and conditions. One is that we ourselves must make a firm decision. No matter what, whatever we encounter, we must persist. Worldly people are also like this, especially in Western culture. Many people particularly advocate courage and perseverance, because in life it's impossible to have no obstacles or adverse conditions. Once there are adverse conditions and obstacles, quite a number of people don't dare to face them. In the end, their mental strength is insufficient and they become more and more fragile. In the end, something you could have overcome, but truly in the end, you give up halfway through. This kind of phenomenon is particularly common in the world. It's also like this in our Buddhist practice. At the beginning, there may be many people practicing and studying Buddhism. But when they reach perhaps the 81 difficulties, when they encounter various situations, some have no way to endure any further. After this, it's easy to regress. Among the Buddha names we're studying this time, there are also many Buddha names that serve this function of non-regression. I think this is very important. Our non-regression, relying on the blessings of the Buddhas, is also very important. Then relying on our own power of aspiration. I cannot say about such things, what does this matter? For example, some of us, in the process of practice, truly cannot continue practicing, or encounter difficulties in life, or encounter difficulties in the mind, or encounter some illness in the body. At that time, people are very realistic. When you are particularly prosperous and successful, everyone shows you respect, makes offerings, praises you, and prostrates to you. But once your body or your mind, your career, your reputation, and so on suffer some harm, then everyone will distance themselves from you and even begin to slander you for no reason. This is basically a rather normal pattern for all people from east, west, south, and north. When I went to Africa, I also learned about some of their ways of life. I asked, do you have here, when someone is doing particularly well, everyone likes them, but when they're not doing well, everyone insults and disparages them? Do you have this? They said, this is very common. This is a natural phenomenon. I was a bit curious because in my mind, African people, it seems many of their customs and ways of life are somewhat not particularly the same. So would their practices be the same as us Asians and others? And indeed, they are very much the same. As for Westerners, needless to say, at certain times they are even more realistic than some of us Asians, especially when it involves their own interests. Whether it's a teacher, a guru, a relative, or even perhaps because their way of life is first and foremost me first. For example, in a family, each person must certainly put themselves first. So under this kind of thinking and education, many issues truly still center on oneself. Sometimes I think right now the whole world, with Western education or certain rather strong educational philosophies as the dominant force for humanity to attain true peace and happiness, is becoming more and more difficult. Sometimes when I look, I think I mentioned this the other day, in this world of ours, whether it's technology or resources, all the spiritual wealth or material wealth originally provided to us by the earth should be sufficient. But every one of our countries, every politician, every economist, their thinking is self-centered. Under this kind of educational system, people all over the world should be living rather wearily. No matter which country, East or West, which person, basically the mentality is the same. First of all, what Buddhism teaches, the first is greed, so-called greed. The wealth one possesses is not enough. One is unsatisfied, insatiably greedy. This necessarily extends to, I want so much more in this lifetime. My relatives, the people around me, continuously. One's greed can expand and can even go to limitless places. Then, if I haven't achieved this kind of goal of mine, there is hatred in my mind stream, relying on hatred. If I can destroy the other, I must destroy them. Perhaps you speak slogans a bit nicely, but actually it's still for your own benefit. In this process, our actions, not considering others, having no altruistic mind, mainly having a kind of ignorance, when we discriminate in our actions, there's no particular reasonableness. This is called ignorance. So we ordinary beings should have very serious greed, hatred, and ignorance. Because of this greed, hatred, and ignorance, no matter how beautifully we speak of this world, when we actually look at the whole globe, we can also see if truly the people in this world, for example, wealthy people, if they control what is enough for themselves to use and then distribute the remainder entirely to those in every corner of the earth, these pitiful people, and then the powerful authority they possess, if they don't take away the little bit that these pitiful beings possess, but instead share even more with them. I think this world should be very good. This point, when I went to Africa, when I went to these countries in Europe and America, I still had a particularly deep feeling about this. We humans, whether from past history or the present situation, are actually more cruel than animals. We know that animals, whatever they eat, all weak things, all these beings they will eat. But humans are also like this. When they arrive in other places, since ancient times, human history should be a kind of bloody battle. We can say that the self, the ego, is extremely strong. Under this greed, hatred, and ignorance, the many things done, everyone should be clear about this. The so-called actions of ordinary beings, how should they be reasonable? So sometimes we should also understand what? Without altruistic bodhicitta, truly this world, no matter what, may have great difficulty having eternal happiness. On this point, sometimes when praying to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in our lifetime and even throughout all our lifetimes, may I do my best not to harm any beings, and I should benefit more beings. Although our strength is limited, we are limited in every way. But in any case, the true thought of our Mahayana Buddhism is also like this. When we pray to the Buddha, we have a kind of altruistic mind. Throughout all my lifetimes, I want to benefit beings. When we wake up in the morning, we should also cultivate this. When we go to sleep at night, we also make this aspiration. Every day, throughout the 6 periods of day and night, make this aspiration. And when we pray to the Buddha, we also think this way. When reciting mantras, we also think this way. Even when we're walking, doing prostrations, or eating, we should constantly familiarize ourselves with this altruistic mind. This is truly very important. We've studied Mahayana bodhicitta, but if in our own mind stream there isn't even a bit of bodhicitta, it's just like we used to say, and if you don't even have compassion, what's the point of practicing Vajrakala? We just received the Vajrakala empowerment, and many people are practicing Vajrakala. But if you recite Vajrakala with the thought, I want to harm such and such beings, then you definitely cannot accomplish the practice. If you practice this way, it may not be authentic. So, on the one hand, we practice Vajrakala, especially those who have received the empowerment. I think the wrathful form of Guru Rinpoche, practicing this is truly very important. In these degenerate times, there are quite a lot of demonic forces and adverse conditions. At such times, we used to recite every year, for example, Vajrakala from 10,000 to 100,000 times, and Guru Padmasambhava's wrathful mantra, Om Benza Kroda Namo Bhagavate Hum Hum Fat, also from 10,000 to 100,000 times. If we practice these ourselves every year, protecting and safeguarding ourselves is very important. This is very important. If we have interest and faith, we should practice like this every year, not just recite it once in the past and be done with it. For example, when His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche held the Sukhavat Dharma gathering, he said that every year we should recite 1 million Amitabha Buddha's holy name. Later, I heard that people like Khenpo Sodargye and many great masters recite this every year. As for me, after so many years, I still haven't finished, so I feel a bit ashamed. However, in our practice, every year, for example, every year we recite Vajrasattva's heart mantra 400,000 times, Amitabha Buddha's heart mantra 300,000 times, and we do our best with altruistic mind and bodhicitta aspiration, at the same time reciting these mantras. Some are still very diligent. Every day, even if they cannot recite particularly many, they don't interrupt. So for example, I will recite this many Vajrasattva heart mantras every day, or Guru Rinpoche's wrathful mantra, or Vajrakla. This way, gradually, sometimes slowly, like a steady stream. In the end, it forms a vast ocean. This is very meaningful. Just now, in the middle of teaching the Buddha names, I don't know where I went off on a sightseeing tour. The Buddha King, Sumeru lamp. Then I prostrate to the Buddha jewel virtue. This Buddha jewel virtue also appears in the Flower Hand Sutra. He gave a prophecy to a certain Bodhisattva Variolius crest about the future. I prostrate to the Buddha jewel moon. As for the Buddha jewel moon, this should be a Buddha of the eastern direction. He appears in the confession to the 35 Buddhas. I prostrate to the Buddha jewel moon, the Buddha stainless. It seems I can recite the confession to the 35 Buddhas fairly well. For everything else, I'm rather poor at reciting texts. This is the Buddha jewel moon. Then the Buddha jewel blaze. As for this character blaze, in Tibetan there's often the character for burning, and that character is quite similar. These are basically all found in the Sutra of Buddha names. I prostrate to the Buddha jewel majesty. I prostrate to the Buddha lion's roar of hardship conquering. In the Vimalakirti Sutra, it's called lion sound. Actually, lion's roar is the same. In Tibetan, it also says lion's roar. I prostrate to the Buddha king of great light. I prostrate to the Buddha immovable light. This character light shouldn't be needed. It's also not in the Tibetan. It's not in the Dunhuang manuscript either, and it's also not in the Sutra of Buddha names. It's just I prostrate to the Buddha immovable of the eastern direction. Sometimes we recite the Buddha immovable's heart mantra. I prostrate to the Buddha immovable, this one. I prostrate to the Buddha medicine king. As for this Buddha medicine king, there's also in a sutra translated by Dharmaraksa called the Sutra of the Lotus Blossom of the Fine Dharma. In the Sutra of the Lotus Blossom of the Fine Dharma, there's specifically a chapter on Medicine King. In this, it talks about the Buddha Medicine King. Actually, it's also the Buddha Medicine Master King. Perhaps it's this one, perhaps not. Because below there's the Buddha King of lapis lazuli light. Then below it says, I prostrate to the Buddha adornment. I prostrate to the Buddha lofty assembly. The Buddha lofty assembly is the last Buddha among the 1,000 Buddhas of the fortunate eon. In the preliminary practices, it's called the Buddha supreme understanding. Actually, as for this Buddha lofty assembly, he should be in our past, which is to say in the present fortunate eon, he is the last Buddha. Some say that in China, the current Bodhisattva Skanda will become the last one among the 1,000 Buddhas of the fortunate eon in the future and become the Buddha lofty assembly. There's also this explanation. In any case, our past eon is called the adorned eon. The present eon is called the fortunate eon, also known as the excellent and marvelous eon. The future eon is called the consolation eon. In each of these eons, 1,000 Buddhas will appear. This is the last Buddha in the fortunate eon. If we ordain under Buddha Shakyamuni's teachings, or even take the 3 refugees and 5 precepts in the past, in Maitreya's 5 treatises, the distinguishing Dharma and Dharmata and distinguishing the middle from extremes, in some commentaries, many great masters have said that we will attain realization under Buddha Maitreya's teachings, or even at the very latest, under the teachings of the Buddha lofty assembly, we will definitely attain the noble fruit and gain liberation. There are also such teachings. Now below it says, I prostrate to the Buddha moon parasol. I prostrate to the Buddha universal light. I prostrate to the Buddha jewel king. I prostrate to the Buddha guardian defender. This Buddha guardian defender in the 7 past Buddhas we'll discuss below. Actually, the 7 past Buddhas from our perspective now are past Buddhas, but speaking from the perspective of the present 1,000 Buddhas of the fortunate eon, they shouldn't be past Buddhas. So the Buddha guardian defender is the Buddha Vipashin in the fortunate eon. I prostrate to the Buddha form king. As for the Buddha form king, he's called the Buddha Shikin, also called the Buddha crest. I prostrate to the Buddha compliant leaves. The Buddha compliant leaves is the Buddha Vishvabhu. I prostrate to the Buddha Krakuchanda. This should be the Buddha Krakuchanda. The first Buddha in our fortunate eon is the Buddha Krakuchanda. I prostrate to the Buddha Kanakamuni. What is this called? The second Buddha among the 1,000 Buddhas of our fortunate eon. I prostrate to the Buddha Kashyapa. In the past, sometimes we pronounced it Jiashe and sometimes Jiaye, but in Sanskrit it seems it's pronounced Jiaye. In that case, Jiaye should be fine. In China, it's commonly pronounced Jiashe. Just now, from the Buddha Guardian Defender to the Buddha Kashyapa we mentioned earlier, plus Buddha Shakyamuni, are the commonly spoken of 7 Buddhas. The 7 Buddhas mantra for purifying negativities, the verses of the 7 Buddhas, there are quite a few of these. It said there's a sutra called the Sutra of Samantabhadra Bodhisattva's testimony. It's currently in the Japanese Taisho Tripitaka. It explains what the 7 Buddhas are like, and if we recite their names, what kind of effect does it have. If all beings are in the midst of illness and hardship, if in distress, if in great fire, among tigers and wolves in mountain valleys, if on dangerous roads with thieves, if in the calamity of rivers, constantly recite the names of the 7 Buddhas, and all will be eliminated. In the Sutra of Samantabhadra Bodhisattva's testimony, it says this. In our Tibetan Buddhism, there's specifically a verse for reciting the names of the 7 Buddhas. Including during the rainy season retreat or when praying for others' well-being, this verse is often used and recited. When it's convenient, I'll also translate it and share it with everyone, because whether it's the names of the 7 Buddhas or verses like these, there is still very great merit. This is the merit of the 7 Buddhas, the blessings of their names. So all these calamities will be eliminated. In our current society, there truly are illnesses and fires. Look at America. It's already been over 2 months now, and their fires still haven't been extinguished. We've been to a place with a great stupa, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoches. I heard that now these forest fires have already approached that area. Many people in the surrounding areas are already evacuating. So sometimes in the face of disasters, people truly are particularly insignificant, including in the current world, whether it's various wild beasts, earth, water, fire and wind, or wars. All kinds of fears exist. So at this time, even if we just hear these names of the Buddhas and join our palms together with one hand, then the merit is also inconceivable. Everyone should also understand this. Next, I prostrate to the Buddha King of Thunder Sound. As for the Buddha King of Thunder Sound, Manjushra Bodhisattva made aspirations before the Buddha King of Thunder Sound. In the Chinese Tripitaka, in Tibet it's classified among the Tantras, there's an aspiration prayer. Manjushra Bodhisattva once made aspirations before the Tathagata King of Thunder Sound. The content of the aspiration is basically like the aspirations made by Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva. Until the hells are empty, I vow not to become a Buddha. The meaning is quite similar. How does it say? The virtue I constantly practice is not to take the direct path to enlightenment. Manjushra Bodhisattva says, the Dharma I practice is not practiced for my own enlightenment. If even one sentient being has not been liberated, I will dwell throughout dark eons constantly transforming and benefiting them. He says, if in this world even one being has not attained liberation, I will dwell for a long time in dark eons, constantly manifesting before them, liberating them, benefiting them, teaching them, benefiting them, so everyone also knows this kind of spirit. We know that Manjushra Bodhisattva, even the Buddhas and Tathagatas made aspirations before him. His way of becoming a Buddha is like the shepherd's aspiration, first liberating all beings and then becoming a Buddha himself, this kind of aspiration. Therefore, he once made aspirations before the Tathagata King of Thunder Sound like this. He is a Buddha of a pure Buddha field in the northern direction. I prostrate to the Buddha, revering Dharma treasury. I prostrate to the Buddha, sandalwood flower. I prostrate to the Buddha, sandalwood leaves. I prostrate to the Buddha, wonderful mind. In Tibetan, it's wonderful mind. In some other sutras, it's called wonderful sound. The character for sound without the heart, radical below, but perhaps many copies of the Sutra of Buddha names made an error when written, or the heart radical below was dropped, because sound and mind only differ by the heart radical at the bottom. In Tibetan, it's all called the Buddha Wonderful Mind. I prostrate to the Buddha Unsurpassed Victory. I prostrate to the Buddha Drum of Ambrosia. I prostrate to the Buddha Vipassana. Here again appears the Buddha Vipassana. I prostrate to the Buddha Sun and Moonlight. The Buddha Sun and Moonlight is said to be a Buddha of a Buddha field in the southern direction. There's a sutra called the Sutra proclaiming the merit of the Buddhas. In the Sutra proclaiming the merit of the Buddhas, it says that the Buddha field of the Buddha, sun, moon, and lamplight has no three lower realms and no poverty. Whoever can hear this Buddha's name will also not regress in the process of practice. As I also mentioned just now, non-regression is very important. I believe that with our Sutra of Great Liberation, if we listen to all of it this time, everyone will never regress, not to mention throughout all lifetimes, but at least not regress in this lifetime. When we leave this human realm, if we are monastics, we will not regress from the monastic path. If we are lay practitioners, we will not regress from lay practitioner conduct. This non-regression is truly very good practice. If there's no regression, this is very good practice. This is how I think about it. When we're young, we practice this Dharma, but in the end, not only do we regress, we even become echantika. Yesterday, we talked about how becoming echantika is very easy. We think that echantika seems to be someone who has completely severed all roots of virtue, but this kind of severing roots of virtue, we ourselves might in the first half of life. I'm a monastic, and in the second half of life I become an echantika. When we finally leave this human realm, if we still haven't recovered, that's truly very pitiful. So in any case, fundamentally not regressing, this is very important. I also very, very much hope that many of us here, whether you've listened to the Dharma before or have practiced, we don't dare say that you can immediately attain particularly profound and unfathomable accomplishments, flying in the sky like a bird, swimming in water like a fish, or burrowing into the earth like a mouse. Such things we don't envy at all. Anyone can have these. But what is our greatest accomplishment? When you depart, to not develop wrong views toward the Guru and the three jewels, to conduct ourselves as properly and in accordance with Dharma as possible, even if some adverse conditions appear and we cannot be completely in accordance with Dharma, we should approach it with a mind of confession and shame. It's best not to leave as an echantika. Originally we thought echantika meant someone who has severed all roots of virtue, someone who doesn't have even a bit of virtue. But recently, according to the Nirvana Sutra and many other sutras we've studied, it turns out echantika exist among us too. But what's rather frightening about echantika, look, those who slander the vast Mahayana, these two types of echantika cannot be saved, so this is very dangerous. Therefore, let each of us make the aspiration. Some people truly have very good roots of virtue, even if they listen to the Dharma from a certain guru for perhaps only 1 or 2 years. Their practice is particularly good, and they can persist continuously. Then there are some people, although with a certain guru or at a certain practice center, they stay for so many years, 10, 20 years, but in the end, anything they do is particularly lamentable. Such phenomena also exist, so we don't dare guarantee anything, especially as I just mentioned, these transcendent practice accomplishments, when dying, already achieving rainbow body, not even hair remaining, not even nails remaining, only in the bed, nothing remaining at all. People look and say, when did they turn into light? Wow, a rainbow light appeared in the window. It must be that. The rainbow light manifested toward the west. In that case, we're very envious, but this might be a bit difficult. His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche once said that because he accepted many various kinds of disciples, when he dies, his corpse may not. It's impossible to achieve rainbow body. It might even be larger than before. The Guru said this. But when the Guru passed into nirvana, we also saw with our own eyes that indeed various auspicious signs appeared, whether relics or the body shrinking, all of these occurred. When we die, whether your corpse is large or small, in any case, in a short time, perhaps it's placed in the charnel ground, and then the vultures are very joyful and begin eating with great relish. At that time, if the body is a bit larger, it's a fine meal for those vultures. A somewhat larger body is also fine. If it's earth burial or water burial, a smaller one is also fine. But I don't think this is very important. What's most important is that we don't give up our right view. I think non-regression is still very important. Throughout one's life, we ourselves, I think I've said this before, our human life is very brief. We don't have time to become many different people. I used to be a materialist, now I become a monastic, then become a lay practitioner, then become a monastic again, then become someone with wrong views, then do what? Now, in one person's lifetime, we've already been reborn many times. This kind of situation is probably unnecessary. Everyone should maintain their own conduct. Pray well to the Buddhas without regressing. I still, whether it's my view or my conduct, in Tibet we have this kind of saying, when a certain monastic has passed into nirvana, if they were able to pass into nirvana still with monastic identity, how wonderful, how fortunate their family is. We generally have this folk saying. For example, if a monastic disrobed, oh dear, before their parents died, if only they had died first, how good that would have been. If they had died, how good it would have been. They would have been such and such. Although it's a folk tradition, the content within it should have profound meaning. I can't elaborate too much otherwise. Next, I prostrate to the Buddha, unsurpassed light. I prostrate to the Buddha, king endowed with perfect adornment. I prostrate to the Buddha, king of merit, whose light illuminates everywhere. I prostrate to the Buddha, King Lion's roar, who destroys the four maras. I prostrate to the Buddha, indestructible Vajra. I prostrate to the Buddha, lapis lazuli light. This should be medicine Buddha. When he was on the causal ground, he made the 12 great vows. The Buddha spoken of in the Medicine Buddha Sutra. I prostrate to the Buddha King, Mount Sumeru. I prostrate to the Buddha King of pure bright light. As for the Buddha King of pure bright light in the Sutra of Buddha names, it's the Buddha King of pure bright light. In Tibetan, including in the Dunhuang version, it's all the Buddha King of pure bright light. In our Sutra of Buddha names, in the middle at this place, they added the 88 Buddhas. At this point, they added the 88 Buddhas. Then below, at the beginning of another fascicle, below it's called I prostrate to the Buddha, virtuous goodness. As for this Buddha, virtuous goodness, it's also mentioned in the Dashabhumika Vibhasa Shastra. This Buddha is a Buddha of the eastern direction. He also possesses such and such merit, and if one hears of him, one will not regress. He is different from other gods, nagas, and spirits. Virtuous goodness, his virtue is purely good, bringing only peace and happiness. The Buddha, virtuous goodness, his merit is all purely good. He only brings happiness to beings. Not like the gods, nagas, and spirits whose merit may confuse and trouble beings. He's not like the other worldly gods, nagas, spirits, the 8 classes of gods and nagas. His merit is different from theirs. Although they have merit and miraculous powers, sometimes they confuse and trouble beings, harm beings. But as for the Buddha, not only the Buddha virtuous goodness, but also others, including Buddha Shakyamuni and so on, all are like this. Now, some people are afraid to study, thinking, if I interrupt in the middle, will it be bad for me? If I break precepts, will it be bad for me? Of course, some actions that are not in accordance with Dharma, according to natural law, might bring some negative results and suffering to oneself. But because you pray to the Buddha becomes unhappy and takes revenge on you. This phenomenon doesn't exist with any Buddha, nor with any Bodhisattva. Any transcendent Dharma protector, including Dakins and Devas, also wouldn't have this. So some of us who study Buddhism, we worry about things we don't need to worry about and don't worry about things we should worry about. There are also such people. So when it's convenient, everyone should tell people, everyone, study, it's fine. If you truly have heavy afflictions and transgress, then temporary merit will certainly still exist. When we take precepts, we can take them for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. It's always said that even if we can maintain them for 7 days, that merit is also inconceivable. Therefore, we who study Buddhism should not think, oh, I used to study Buddhism, but because I interrupted in the middle or whatever, maybe the Buddha is unhappy. Perhaps some gurus, Khenpos or Khenmos, temporarily because they particularly care for you, when your behavior is not in accordance with Dharma, they might criticize you. But actually, they won't completely abandon you either, as long as they are people endowed with bodhicitta. They won't abandon you. The nature of ordinary beings with heavy afflictions should be perfectly clear. Under these circumstances, everyone doesn't need to worry. We should be able to study with relative peace of mind. I prostrate to the Buddha, limitless bright light. I prostrate to the Buddha, play of dharans. I prostrate to the Buddha, king of power of Shurangama Samadhi. I prostrate to the Buddha, king of mastery in good vision Samadhi. I prostrate to the Buddha, king of brave conduct Samadhi power. This Buddha, king of brave conduct Samadhi power was also added by later people. They added it later. It's not in our Dunhuang manuscript either. It's not in the Sutra of Buddha names either. It's not in the the Tibetan either. It's probably from the earlier Buddha, king of power of Shurangama Samadhi. Shurangama means brave conduct. Samadhi should mean concentration, the meaning of samadhi. Then power king, I don't know, they added this. So this one is not needed. King of brave conduct, samadhi, power. This Buddha name is not needed. Below it says, I prostrate to the Buddha unsurpassed merit. I prostrate to the Buddha mastery and miraculous powers. I prostrate to the Buddha without form characteristics. I prostrate to the Buddha without sound characteristics. As for this Buddha without sound characteristics, in different sutras there are different versions, but we can leave ours unchanged. In Tibetan, it's the Buddha scattered form. Form is form from form, sound, smell, and taste. Scattered is scattered, as in fragrance dispersing. In the Dunhuang manuscript, it's called the Buddha without scattering. In the Dunhuang manuscript, there's also the Buddha without sound. In the Sutra of Buddha names, there also seem to be different versions, but actually, as for the Dunhuang manuscript, some are, as I should have mentioned yesterday, rather incomplete, but some are still reasonable. In this one, there's also the Buddha without sound, although it doesn't quite match the Tibetan, but looking at the arrangement of these several Buddha names, because before it's form, then sound, smell, taste, touch in this way. In the Dunhuang manuscript, there's the Buddha without sound. Here also it says the Buddha without sound. It should be reasonable. Before is without form characteristics, without sound characteristics, without smell characteristics, taste characteristics, touch characteristics. I prostrate to the Buddha without smell characteristics. I prostrate to the Buddha without taste characteristics. I prostrate to the Buddha without touch characteristics. These are form, sound, smell, taste, and touch. Up to this point in the Sutra of Buddha names, up to here it's like this, and then below in the Sutra of Buddha names is spoken of in the 28th fascicle. All the future Buddhas are also there. In the Sutra of Buddha names, this section below, and what we'll mention later, these future Buddhas. What was mentioned above just now is mainly in the Sutra of Buddha names, spoken of in the 16th fascicle. Then below it says, I prostrate to the Buddha mastery in samadhi concentration. I prostrate to the Buddha mastery in wisdom concentration. I prostrate to the Buddha mastery in characteristics awakening. It's like this. The Dunhuang manuscript has this. The Tibetan doesn't have it. The Sutra of Buddha names has it. In Tibetan below there's a Buddha king of jewel characteristics, but as for the Buddha king of jewel characteristics, it's also not in the Sutra of Buddha names. It's also not in the Dunhuang manuscript. So in this case, should we keep this one or should we keep both of them? Perhaps it's due to different versions. The Buddha mastery in characteristics awakening above is not in Tibetan, but the other two both have it. Then as for the Buddha king of jewel characteristics, the Tibetan has it, but in the Sutra of Buddha names and the Dunhuang manuscript, both don't have it. But if the Tibetan has it, I don't know, do we dare delete it? Probably we don't dare delete it. It's a bit different, but it's also not found in the Dunhuang manuscript. So perhaps it's better to keep this one. I prostrate to the Buddha universal gathering. I prostrate to the Buddha universal light of repaying kindness. In the Sutra of Buddha names, I recall it's jewel, as in treasure, the Buddha universal light of repaying kindness. The Tibetan is the same as this. I prostrate to the Buddha Shikin, as we mentioned earlier, the same as the Buddha form king among the 7 Buddhas, also called the Buddha crest. I prostrate to the Buddha Visvabhu. This is the Buddha compliant leaves that we mentioned earlier, or the Buddha all victorious. All victorious, all saving, both meanings exist. I prostrate to the Buddha Kalakavriksha. The Buddha Kalakavriksha is the Buddha Krakuchanda. So among the 7 Buddhas, 5 Buddhas also appear here and also appeared earlier. I prostrate to the Buddha Kanakamuni. This Buddha Kanakamuni is also called Golden Sage. I prostrate to the Buddha Kashyapa. The Buddha Kashyapa was previously called the Buddha Drinking Light. I prostrate to the Buddha Beautiful Sound of Joyful Mind. I prostrate to the Buddha Joy. I prostrate to the Buddha Aksobhya. Now below, the 16 Buddhas mentioned in the Lotus Sutra, the 16 Buddhas begin with the Buddha Aksobhya. In the 4 cardinal directions and 4 intermediate directions, there are 16 Buddhas. As for these 16 Buddhas, the Lotus Sutra also has them. Everyone should also remember clearly. I prostrate to the Buddha Aksobhya. This is a Buddha of the eastern direction. I prostrate to the Buddha Sumeru appearance. As for the Buddha Sumeru appearance, the Dunhuang manuscript has it. I prostrate to the Buddha Sumeru peak. The Dunhuang manuscript has it. The Tibetan doesn't have it, and the Sutra of Buddha names has it, and the Lotus Sutra also has it. The Lotus Sutra says, These are two Buddhas of the eastern direction. One is the Buddha Aksobhya, one is the Buddha Sumeru Peak. These two Buddhas are the two Buddhas of the eastern direction. I prostrate to the Buddha Lion Sound, I prostrate to the Buddha Lion Appearance. These two are Buddhas of the southeastern direction. The Buddha Lion Sound and the Buddha Lion Appearance, two Buddhas of the southeastern direction. Then I prostrate to the Buddha dwelling in space. As for the Buddha dwelling in space, the Lotus Sutra has it. In Tibetan, the Buddha dwelling in space is not there. In the Lotus Sutra, he is a Buddha of the southern direction. In the Danhuang manuscript, one version has it, one version doesn't have it. So if it's there, because the Lotus Sutra also has it, one version of the Danhuang manuscript has it. In this way, this should be a Buddha of the southern direction. Although this Buddha is not in the Tibetan, he is a Buddha of the southern direction. I prostrate to the Buddha mastery of clouds and thunder, but as for clouds and thunder, this character thunder should not be in the Tibetan. In others, including all versions of the Dunhuang manuscript, it's all the Buddha mastery of clouds. We won't use this character thunder. I don't know where this came from. As for this direction, it's not really specified. Because for the 16 Buddhas, the other directions are all accounted for. Just now, the eastern two, the southeastern two, then in the southern direction, the Buddha dwelling in space, and here the Buddha constant extinction. The Buddha constant extinction, the Danhuang manuscript also has it this way. The Lotus Sutra also has it this way. The Tibetan also has it this way, the Buddha constant extinction. Then the Buddha constant stillness. Perhaps the Tibetan only has one, but why was this added? We won't use this one. We won't use this Buddha constant stillness. That Buddha constant extinction just now is a Buddha of the southern direction, the two Buddhas of the southern direction. Then below it's called the Buddha Emperor Appearance. The Buddha Emperor Appearance is a Buddha of the southwestern direction. Then I prostrate to the Buddha not Brahma Appearance. The Buddha not Brahma Appearance, neither the Tibetan nor Dunhuang manuscript has it. So this one should not be used. I prostrate to the Buddha Amitabha. That one just now is a Buddha of the southwestern direction. The Buddha Emperor Appearance is southwestern. The Buddha Amitabha is a Buddha of the western direction, and I prostrate to the Buddha Brahma Appearance. This is a Buddha of the southwestern direction. The southwest has two Buddhas. I prostrate to the Buddha liberating all worldly suffering and distress. This is a Buddha of the western direction. The Buddha Amitabha, these two are Buddhas of the western direction. The Buddha Emperor Appearance and the Buddha Brahma Appearance are Buddhas of the southwestern direction. Then I prostrate to the Buddha Tamalapatra Sandalwood Fragrance. I prostrate to the Buddha Sumeru Appearance. The Buddha Sumeru Appearance is a Buddha of the northwestern direction. In the northwest, one is the Buddha Tamalapatra Sandalwood Fragrance. This is one in the northwest, and that Buddha Sumeru Appearance just now. These two are Buddhas of the northwestern direction. That one is in the Lotus Sutra. Then below, I prostrate to the Buddha King of Mastery in Clouds. This is a Buddha of the northern direction, and the Buddha Mastery in Clouds. Our version doesn't have this one. The Buddha Mastery in Clouds. We don't have this in ours, but the Danhuang manuscript and the Lotus Sutra both have it. These two are both in the northern direction. The Buddha Mastery in Clouds and the Buddha King of Mastery in Clouds. These are Buddhas of the northern direction. I prostrate to the Buddha destroying all worldly fear. That one is a Buddha of the northeastern direction. I prostrate to the 100 billion emanations of our Buddha Shakyamuni. This is also northeastern. So Buddha Shakyamuni is a northeasterner. One is the Buddha destroying all worldly fear. If there are northeasterners, they'll be happy. People are all like this. If something is not good, northeasterners are not good. Ah, how are they not good? Who says they're not good? Then if you say Buddha Shakyamuni, Buddha Shakyamuni, yes, he's one of us northeasterners. This isn't a northeasterner, it's the northeastern direction. Up to this point, what we've discussed, all the present Buddhas have already been taught. I prostrate to the present, 1 Buddha, 10 Buddhas, 100 Buddhas, 1,000 Buddhas, 10,000 Buddhas, able to eliminate the heavy sins of birth and death from countless eons. If we prostrate to these, whether 1 Buddha or 10 Buddhas or thousands and millions of Buddhas, we can eliminate sins from countless eons. This has particularly great merit. I prostrate to 100 million, 1 billion, 10 billion, 100 billion, 1,000 billion, 10,000 billion, Nayuta, as many as the grains of sand in the Ganges River, countless incalculable Buddhas. Actually, when we prostrate to all the thousands, millions, countless, incalculable Buddhas. If people hear the names of these present, countless, incalculable Buddhas, these people will not fall into the hell realms for 600,000 eons. So we should pay respect. Yesterday, for the past Buddhas, it's 800,000 eons of not falling into the hell realms. So if people hear the names of these present Buddhas, it doesn't say develop faith, it doesn't say anything else. So as I also said the other day, this time, if you don't have special circumstances, please try to listen to the entire Sutra of Great Liberation. There truly is very great merit. So now, we've created much karma in the past, but if in the future we try our best not to create karma, then the Buddha's Vajra word should not deceive us. We're not talking about the next lifetime. For 600,000 eons, we won't fall into the hell realms. This should be purchasing very good insurance. Otherwise, we're all very, very worried. So we should pay respect to the present Buddhas. This is very necessary. If people, because of prostrating and paying homage to the present Buddhas of the 10 directions, if we, because of prostrating and bowing to the present Buddhas of the 10 directions, can be liberated from all the 10 non-virtuous actions created by greed, hatred, and ignorance, and then eliminate the 5 acts of immediate retribution and so forth. The 5 acts of immediate retribution are so terrifying in the world, but if we regularly prostrate to the Buddhas, this will happen. I remember in the past when I was listening to the preliminary practices at that time in 1985, at that time the policies had just been restored. But previously, during the Cultural Revolution, there was a person in our area who slandered Mahayana Buddhism and slandered gurus. Although he didn't engage in struggle sessions, sometimes he shouted slogans, sometimes he participated. So later he felt particularly regretful. At that time, I was staying with a Lama. He could be considered. Previously, he was a monastic. Later, he disrobed. He began carving the Sutra of Great Liberation. As for that Lama, he was not far from where I was. I was practicing the preliminary practices. Not far away, he would recite every day. He said at night he only slept a little bit. He could recite the Sutra of Great Liberation by heart. He didn't need to look at the book continuously. Early in the morning, he would get up and confess, feeling that previously he was a practitioner, but in the middle he created very great negative karma. On his head there were very, very large bumps because he kept prostrating. His floorboards were completely worn through for several years, day in and day out, constantly confessing. It seems later that Lama went to Yachen. Later he passed into nirvana at Yachen. So some people may have committed some sins in the middle, but they still very diligently, particularly devoutly in their later years, they have awakened. I still remember this quite clearly. He would recite the names from the Sutra of Great Liberation and continuously do this. Being able to recite it by heart is really impressive. He definitely put in tremendous effort. Eliminate the 5 acts of immediate retribution and dwell constantly in the pure ground, abiding in Buddha Shakyamuni's teachings, forever leaving the 3 lower realms of hell, hungry ghosts and animals, and in the future will meet Bodhisattva Maitreya when he becomes a Buddha, Buddha Maitreya, as well as many of the 1,000 Buddhas in our fortunate eon. We will be able to see them. So today we should pay respect to the present Buddhas. In the future we will see again the Buddhas of the 10 directions. We will constantly be born in pure Buddha fields like the pure land of Sukhavat, the lapis lazuli world. We can be reborn in these pure Buddha fields. And when we arrive there, we will certainly be able to hear the ultimate truth. Ultimate truth in Tibetan, it's true Dharma. We will be able to hear the true Dharma, and we will understand the constancy of the Tathagata, understand the nature of the Tathagata. As for the constancy of the Tathagata, it can be explained in 2 ways. Either we can see all Buddhas of the 10 directions in 3 times, we can perceive them, or we can properly and correctly perceive the nature of our own mind's ever-present Tathagata Garbha, the nature of Tathagata Garbha. We in this worldly realm have regarding future Buddhas, past Buddhas, and present Buddhas. Everyone should also have a kind of faith. This is very important. This kind of faith, perhaps for us, because everyone habitually, for example, now from the spatial dimension, we can understand understand three dimensions, east, south, west, north or front, back, left, right, up, down. In this way, from the spatial dimension, it's not unidirectional. You can go to the east and can also return to the west, but now from the temporal dimension, it's only unidirectional. You can only be in the present and then go directly toward the future. As for the past, there's no way to return. So from quantum mechanics perspective, it's a kind of unidirectional flow. So on this level, they feel that time and space still have differences. Time should be said to be real. As explained in the Hinayana, time, in general, the Vaibhasika and Sutrantika of the Hinayana consider it a non-associated compositional factor. It's a kind of real, substantial thing, but the Mahayana Yogacara school feels that this so-called reality is merely temporarily designated. Actually, it doesn't exist. What's the reason it doesn't exist? By examining it with partless moments. Just like in the Mula Madhyamaka Karika and the Madhyamaka Lamkara, as analyzed in the 6 works of Madhyamaka, our so-called present is actually not a truly real present. Why is it said not to be a real present? Our so-called present is merely a concept of mind. Actually, the present also has no real thing, because our so-called present, perhaps today is the present, this hour is the present, this minute is the present, this minute has 60 seconds. Among them, this current second is the present. This second can be divided further. In this way, our so-called present in ordinary concepts also cannot be established. Under these circumstances, whether it's past Buddhas or future Buddhas, we can also communicate in another way. So for us now, most habitual ways of thinking, we find it very difficult to communicate, but actually it's still possible. It seems at the beginning of this year, many people were particularly concerned about prophecies from future people. Last year on the internet, for a period of time, there appeared, I don't know if it was true or false, some future people saying such and such things will happen in the future. At that time, someone asked the future people, what era are you from? I'm from the future, from 2060. Then how did you come here? They said, you think it's impossible to come, but actually it's possible to come. Then they asked, well, what happens in the future, including whether our Winter Olympics could. They said there are problems with this. As for 2019, is it humanity's most wonderful future? At that time, they said, at the end of 2019, people will discover that life at the beginning of 2019 was the happiest. None of this has been truly verified. I don't know if some people deliberately did this, and in the end, coincidentally, what they said was somewhat accurate, but perhaps later, it seems, on the internet, it wasn't found anymore. This was never updated. But for a period of time, everyone was particularly concerned. Perhaps there really was a future person. They said, how do you communicate? Our physical bodies cannot come, but the mind can come. Although it's the future, but from the future they can, as I just mentioned, according to quantum mechanics, once time passes, it's past. It's impossible for things from the future to come back now. But whether it's the realm of Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, or some in space-time, especially if one has mastered unobstructed wisdom, perhaps they can indeed know the past, know the future, know the present. Such situations we cannot say they don't exist. So we might be like frogs at the bottom of a well, thinking only what we see is correct and everything else is impossible.
There's an animation, you could say, that I want to introduce to you. It's a story, and the title of this story is Victoria. I would like to take a moment to show it to everyone here so you can all see what it's about. Let's take a look together at some of the interesting ideas and themes that are explored within this animation. I'm not sure if everyone will understand. Take a look. This is really fascinating. It's a flat world, a country that exists within a two-dimensional world. There are all kinds of different shapes here, each with its own unique features, whether it's a dormitory or something else. This individual is the author. It is a mathematical novel. In this particular dimension, it is considered a kind of circle. There are all sorts of spaces within it. This includes various shapes, including triangles and circles. They live inside their own houses. And they are quite happy with their lives. This is a triangle. Its world is just like this. It can go out and come home in its daily life, and it understands its world from different perspectives. It can only exist within its own life. It can discover itself within its being. It can be like this within its own space. This is the life of a circle in this way. As for the life of a circle, when it comes to dimensions of the world, apart from two dimensions, it has no way to comprehend the third dimension. But one day, an apple came into its world. This particular apple really should have been far beyond its own world. When the apple finally arrived, they found it hard to imagine at all. It asked this world in a questioning tone, "Hey, where are you? What are you doing over there now?" It only heard the voice of the apple, but it couldn't see it, because it was just a flat and two-dimensional world with only length and width. It was very difficult for the apple and it to communicate, because one was three-dimensional and the other was a two-dimensional world. So between the apple and it, a rather hard-to-explain question suddenly arose, leaving us momentarily puzzled. At that moment, the apple also felt quite awkward and uncomfortable, not really knowing what to do. In this kind of world, there was just simply no way. In the end, it tried desperately to blend into their lives. But when it tried to fit into their lives, the truth about it still remained unclear to them even then. Only when the apple was sliced into different sections with great care could they discover only the flat plane they had cut at that point. Other than that, they had no idea
that it was a three-dimensional object, something physical and tangible, with real depth.
At this point, the square still really couldn't communicate with it no matter what. Because in its world, even if the apple was truly a three-dimensional thing, to the apple itself, neither side could truly accept the other. So, what could they do? At this moment, the apple took that slice from earlier and deliberately tried to find a way with great effort to throw it out from below. It came up with this idea all on its own. At this point, this flat thing gently floated off into the empty void. When it reached the void, it was a world it had never been to before. At that moment, it felt, wow, this world is truly wonderful. But it felt light and floaty, not knowing what to do. It saw that their original world looked just like this. Sometimes when a person's consciousness drifts off somewhere else, they can also see their own body just the same. When it looked at the world below, pausing carefully for a moment, the ones below simply couldn't fully and truly understand. In the end, it still returned to its own world. When it came back to its own world, a lot of people have asked me, quite curiously, "Where did you actually go?" It replied, I went to the world above.
It was especially amazing, really quite wonderful.
But many people just couldn't understand, what is the world above like? We've never seen ghosts before, or seen bodhisattvas, or seen pure lands. It's just like this flat world. In the end, the communication between the two apples. Gradually, things got better and better. Consider this principle for a moment. On one hand, it's actually kind of fun. On the other hand, maybe we should reflect on it a bit.
Our ordinary being's realm is equivalent to those flat triangles and squares I mentioned earlier, the world of various shapes. We still have realms that transcend space-time. Many of us truly still don't know. So, where is the so-called apple? Everyone, think carefully. Today we'll stop here. There's still a bit more at the end. After hearing this, when hearing the names of the present Buddhas, when the names of Buddhas were spoken, to Ganges River Sands' number of bodhisattvas already entered the gateway of Dharans and obtained Dharan eloquence. Then 4,200,000,000. In our Tibetan, it's written as 4,200,000. 4,200,000 gods and humans all generated unsurpassed bodhicitta. Good, today we'll stop here.
Sonandai Tamsa Togaya Tonai Jana Pasi Kirgana Jirano Chupai Chupun Sonen Droadwaja Bandarangara Badna Sodargye Bandarangara Badna Sodargye Bandarangara Badma Sodargye